Well, so our main topic is the constant strain triangular element for solving a plane stress or plane strain problem. And then last week we discussed the concept of area coordinates, right? With using these coordinates, now we can compute, for example, the equiplanar force, like in this example, in a more easy way. So the equiplanar body force FB. Using the area coordinates, we can calculate the equivalent nodal body force easily. For example, calculate the equivalent nodal body force in the previous example. Previous example refer to using constants body force, or maybe let me directly point out to this question. Prove that for any triangular, the equivalent nodal load vector due to a body force, due to uniform body force. Uniform, it means constants in the element, okay, constants within the element, is a set of forces resulting from the equal distribution of B to its nodes. What I mean here is, if we have an element subjected to a constant or uniform body force, then to calculate the equivalent body force, it's just distribute equally to its nodes. In other words, just divide by 3. Okay, let me illustrate. For example, if we have a triangular element, okay, this is node 1, 2, and 3, and then subjected to some constants body force, right? The result is the equivalent force is distributed equally. It means here B times the volume, because this is the force per unit volume of the element, divided by 3, and here B into volume, and then divided by 3 here, the vector times the volume of the element divided by 3. Okay, if this is constants, the body force is constants. How to prove this? Okay, let me now prove this. So how to calculate an equivalent nodal body force according to the finite element formula emission. The equivalent nodal body force vector is calculated using these integrals. The element domain integrals times n transpose B, the thickness of the element, dA. So this is an area integrals, right? Area integrals over the element. Okay, but the shape functions matrix is this one. We define the shape function matrix transpose as this one, right? N1, N2, N3. This is the shape function matrix transpose. And what is body force here? Body force here is the vector, the components of which is X and Y. Okay, the thickness constants here, dA. So let's multiply this matrix. This gives the integrals over the element, and then N1 bx, N1 by, N2, and then N3 bx, and 3 by. Okay, we integrate over times s times dA. But these constants we can just take out of integrals here. So the problem is how to integrate this. For example, how to integrate the first one. How to calculate the integrals of this one. NA dx. Okay, let me just write like this, okay? Because the thickness is constant, we don't need to worry about the thickness. But we know in this problem, we assume that B, the body force components, is constant or uniform or constant. So actually we can just calculate like this. But, okay, let me write. We can write the shape functions in terms of area coordinates instead of Cartesian coordinates. And you know, last week that when we discussed about area coordinates, that the shape function n1, n2, n3 expressed in terms of the area coordinates is very easy to remember because it's identical to the area coordinates C1, C2, C3, right? Do you remember this? Okay. Last week we discussed that if we express the shape functions using area coordinates, then it's very simple. So it becomes C1 dA. The question is how to integrate this one. Recall that last week, let me go back to the slides. Last week we talked about the integrals, this integral formula, right? So which integral formula can we use? The first or the second? To integrate over the area, of course, the second, right? This one. So let's use the second one. According to the second one, this equal to what? Bx remain bx, of course. This is constant. Then the integral of this is 2 times the triangular area. 2 times the triangular area. And then multiplies with this one. K factorial. K factorial, this is the power 1. It means 1 factorial. Okay. But what L and M? 0, of course. Okay. No C2, no C3, right? So 0 factorial over parenthesis 2 plus, according to this formula, K plus L plus M factorial. So 1 plus 0 factorial. And the result is what? This is equal to 2 area Bx what? 1 factorial is 1, 0 factorial is 1, 0 factorial is 1, right? So that's 1. This is 3 factorial. 3 factorial is 3 times 2 is 6. So that's 1/3 Bx times the area 1, 2, 3. Okay. In other words, we see that the result for the first row here is what? The result for the first row. So the equivalent force for the first row is 1/3 Bx A1 to 3 times the thickness, right? But the area of the element times the thickness is nothing but the volume. So it's 1/3 Bx, the volume of the element. Okay, the volume of the element. This is the volume of the triangular element. Okay. You can perform the computation similarly for others, and you will get the result that's the results for others, similarly using the same formula, and the result is 1/3 volume. This is just Bx. This is By. Bx, By, Bx, By, right? But Bx, By is nothing, the body force itself. So this is the body force corresponding to node 1. This is node 2, node 3. So it's proven already that when we have a constant body force, it's just distributed equally to the nodes, right? Any questions regarding the use of this formula to calculate the equivalent nodal body force? How about if the body force not constant, for example, if linearly distributed with the values at node 1, 2, and 3 given? For example, the problem is now we have a triangular element. This is node 1, 2, and 3. The body force vector at node 1 is given as, for example, this is B1, given. This is given. At node 2, B2, okay? At node 3 can be different, can be here, B3. And this is linear distribution, linearly distributed. So the distribution of the body force within the element is linear. In other words, using the area coordinates, we can just express the body force like this. Body force, because the contribution from its nodes is, this is linear. For a linear distribution, we can express just like this. Using a similar formula, just like linear function like this. If this is along the side for a linear distribution of the body force, you can just write, this is B at 1, C1, B at 2 plus C2 plus B3, C3. Okay. In other words, the difference with the previous problem. Now the body force is not longer a constant, but function of, let me write again here, the body force is a function of the natural coordinates. C1, B1 plus C2, B2 and C3, B3. We can calculate similarly, okay? And the details of the computation for this one I provided in the text of my book, okay? Any questions so far regarding this one? So again, the result is this one. The equivalent nodal force due to a body force vector is given by this one, and the result is this one, okay? So distributed equally when the body force is uniform. Well, now let's consider the equivalent nodal body force due to surface traction. Okay, suppose this is a typical exterior triangular element. Exterior, it means the one of the element sides is an exterior sides. Okay, this is the boundary side. So subjected to surface traction, for example, here. How to calculate the equivalent nodal body force due to surface traction? For example, here the surface traction is maybe constants, okay, like this. It has two components. The components are constants in the unit of, can be given in the unit of force per unit area or force per unit length. The question is, for a distributed, uniformly distributed T or constant T, please, for example, on this is acting on the sides 1, 2, please prove that this is the equivalent nodal body force. Okay, how to prove this? Anyone knows? Actually, this is just divided by 2, right? let's assume that T is in the unit force per unit area. Area of what? Area of the surface on which is X. So this is just the length of side 1, 2 times the thickness divided by 2. Okay. How to prove this? This is from here. Okay. Let me show the proof in the paintbrush. So, the equivalent non-other body force due to traction force. How to calculate using this formula? And transpose surface traction or edge traction. This is the integrals of, not the area integrals, but integrals along the line. So this is ds. Along the line on which the traction acts. So this is E traction, okay, traction, yes, for that element. So this is the boundary, traction boundary condition on that element, okay. This is HDS, actually, the thickness times ds. ds is the integrals of along the line, that line, okay. So for this example, I refer to this 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We have some constant surface traction. Let's say like this. This is surface traction vector. Consists of 2 components. Remember, any vector into D, we can always resolve into X component and Y components, right? Okay. So the computation goes as follows. This is integrals along the line of the traction boundary conditions or the traction along the edge, okay. What is N? You know already, right? Matrix N. The same as the previous one. And what is D? D is this vector. Dx and dy, h ds. I can write more specifically like this. This is constant, the thickness. I can just write outside of the integrals. And then the integrals over the line. Which line? The line of, let me say that the line 1, 2, right? What I mean with line 1, 2 is this one. So it's the integrals along the line 1, 2. This is line integrals. And 1. This is the matrix multiplication. The result of the matrix multiplication. Okay, ds. ds, it means it's referred to the line integrals. So the integrals along that edge or that lines. It's equal to, I think, yes, we have some results later. H, but what the results? For example, how to calculate the integrals of the first one? The line integrals of this one. Well, in this context, in this problem, dx is constant, so we just can take it out of the integrals. This is shape function, but the shape function written in terms of area coordinate is, for n1 is c1, right? ds. Now, how to calculate these integrals? We just can use the formula from that we have here, okay? That's formula here. The given formula for calculating line integrals. So this is the integrals along line 2, 3, but in our example is along line 1, 2. So integrals along line 1, 2 only have C1, okay, no problem. But that's equal to, sorry, this is C1 ds. I think just directly. This is the result is the length of the side 1, 2, okay, the length of the side 1, 2 multiplies by k factorial and L factorial. K and L is inside the integrals. Just inside this integral, okay, what inside we have C1 and it should be, this is 2, 3, 2, 3 is 1, 1, 2, right? But we only have one term here, one factor. So this is just k factorial. K is 1 because the power is 1 right here. 1 factorial, 0 factorial. The L is 0. So this is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0 factorial. That's the result. So the result is dx, the side length, and then this is 1 over 2 factorial. 2 factorial is just this one. So the result is just divided by 2. You can do the same for others. I think the result will have the same, and this is just dx L12 and then 1/2, right? 1/2. Similarly for others. Oh, one thing. How about N3? How about this one? What's for this side? What's N3? The shape function, because this side is the line where coordinate C3 is 0, right? Along this side, C3 is 0. The third coordinates, the third area coordinates. We have 3 coordinates, right? C1, C2, C3. But along this line, C3 is 0. Okay? Because by definition, area coordinates is the distance from this side. And the distance from this side along this line is 0. So, sure for this the 5th and 6th rows, this will be 0. Others like this. So the result is 1/2 the length, thickness times length, and then just dx, dy, dx, dy, 0 and 0. That's how we can prove the results that I have written in the slides here. Okay, for constants supersections using area coordinates. It's very easy. Of course, we can also do using Cartesian coordinates, but it's more algebraically, it's more complicated. Any questions so far? How to calculate the distributed equivalent body force due to equivalent nodal force vector due to body force and due to traction force. Please, if you have any question regarding the finite element formulation of the constant strain triangular element. Well, this is the last class, right? So I think I have finished with this slide. Now let's turn to the next slide that I have prepared. Okay.
Sir, I want to ask.
Yes, please.
In real life, the force, body force, and traction force. What kind of example we can, you can give us?
Okay. Thank you.
Mm.
Body force is by definition force that acts on every part material point in the body. So it's within the body. For example, self weight due to gravity, right? Self weight is body force. because the body force in the unit of force per unit volume. Okay, so it's like density. So the density, the specific gravity, right? Specific gravity. So in the unit of kilonewton per meter cubic, for example. Okay. Another is maybe magnetic force. Magnetic force. If we have magnetic force, or maybe if the body is rotating, maybe centrifugal force. That's example of body force. Surface traction can be any, maybe from contact with others. For example, if we have the loadings, okay, outside the element, okay, from outside, okay, that acts on the surface. That's the force, possible force. Okay, is it clear?
Oh, so if there's outside force and
Oh
then
yes, coming from contact with others,
okay.
applied by others. So maybe have some contact with others here. Okay, that's the surface traction. So let's summarize what we have done so far. We consider an element, okay, a typical element called CST element. Actually, we have a problem, right? A body, and then we divide into triangular element. This is just a typical triangular element. So this is the domain of the element, omega E, of element number E, and then we define the degrees of freedom from 1 to up to 6. Okay, the order of the degrees of freedom, from lowest to highest number. Okay, and then this element is in equilibrium. So we have also applied nodal force to make the element equilibrium. This is Fa1 up to Fa6 is the components of the applied force, right? Unknown applied force just to make the element remains in equilibrium. And then what we did is to use the principle of virtual displacement, because this is in equilibrium, and then we can use the principle of virtual displacement. Okay, this is on the left hand side is the strain energy, virtual strain energy, and on the right side is what? The virtual work, or the virtual work of the forces, actual forces, through virtual displacement. So the force are actual, but the displacement are virtual. And these equations should be true for any admissible virtual displacement, where in the finite element formulation, the virtual displacement and the displacement we approximate using this format, right? Shape function matrix times nodal displacement vector. Okay, the same format for virtual displacement. So this should be true or correct for any virtual displacement. The shape function we derive based on linear shape functions, right? It means we approximate both u and v using linear shape functions, and then we derive the shape function in Cartesian coordinates. So this is the graphs of the shape functions, right? Always 1 at the corresponding nodes and 0 at others. Okay, this is N1, N2, and N3. This is the basis, this is the core of our formulations. Okay, based on this, we also express the strain in terms of the nodal displacement, but we see that the strains here are constants. So that's the names come from, constants, strain triangles. After some algebra of this, we arrive at this element equation, right? Discretized element equation, stiffness equations. This is the stiffness matrix, the elements times nodal displacement. This is the balancing force, still announced, but later this balancing force is used in the Direct-Test method, and then when we use in the Direct-Test method, it's in balance with others neighboring nodes, so it's disappear actually. This is the body force we just discussed, and traction. And also, of course, if there is temperature change, we also have the equivalent nodal force due to temperature change. So this is the formula, okay, that we can use to calculate K, body force. Calculating the body force and surface frictions is easier if we use area coordinates, okay, and then surface traction. No, this is the temperature change. I mean, the effect of the temperature change. Sigma T is the stress due to temperature change. Depends on the initial stress due to temperature change depending on the problem, whether plane stress or plane strain. Also here E depending on the problem, whether plane stress or plane strain. So this is the main formula for the discretized equations. Okay, the main results. The details is here. When the body force, this is the commonly found problem. The body force is uniform, then we just calculate it or just prove that it's just divided by 3, right? And for surface traction, like this, divided by 2. It means distributed equally, okay? At not 1, at not 2. If there is temperature change, for example, in a plane stress problem, the equivalent nodal force due to temperature change is given by this one. B transpose E alpha T. E is the modulus plasticity, alpha is the quotient thermal expansion, T is the temperature change, not absolute temperature, but temperature change, 1 minus nu, 110, times the volume of the element, okay? If plane strain, I think just a little bit difference in here, 1 minus 2 nu, okay? That's for plane strain. Well, any questions so far regarding this summary? Well, if no, now let's test our CST, whether it works well or not, and apply it to real problem, okay? For example, let's say we have just a simple body like this, okay? Square with some thickness, okay? Let's say the thickness is 10 millimeter. This is 400 millimeter or 40 centimeter, right? Square with thickness 10 millimeter. Let's say this is made from steel, and you know for the steel, the modulus plasticity is 200 kilonewton per square millimeter. The Poisson ratio is 0.3. Of course, for this problem, we don't need to use finite element actually, because it's too easy to determine the nodal displacement, the displacement field, support reactions, and stress. This is just pure tension, like bar, right? So this is like bar problem actually. Small bar, okay? Small bar. So the stress you can expect that is just this one, right? This divided by the area, divided by the thickness actually, 0.2, because becomes 0.2 kilonewton per square millimeter. This is the surface traction, but given already in the unit of millimeter, not in the unit of stress, okay? Per unit millimeter. Well, how to solve? It's good if we can solve using exact solutions. Before performing finite elements, is to determine the exact solution first, okay? So we know that the exact stress is just the force. The force is just 2 times 400, right? Because that's the force, right? Divided by the area. Area of what? Area of this one, of course. The cross section, okay? Because we know that this is this area, okay, is 400 times 10, okay? That's 0.2. So the exact stress is 0.2 kilonewton per square millimeter, or if you prefer in megapascal, just 200 megapascal, right? Regarding the displacement, let's say the displacement of this point, material point, or actually this edge, okay? If we view it as 3D. So the displacement exact displacement is 0.4 and V is minus 0.12. We can easily solve this using the previous formula that I developed when you see the example when we have the pure tension, right? The displacement. You can just plug in the coordinates here and then we get this, the displacement. Okay, this is the exact displacement. Okay, because now we are learning about CST, how to use CST for this simple problem, and then we want to compare with these results. Okay. Well, to use finite element as usual, the first step is to model the continuum model to become finite element model. How many elements you want to use? Well, in this example, just let's say we use 2 elements. Okay. Element 1, 2, with the degrees freedom, this one. For each node, we have 2 degrees freedom. The numbering of the elements, the numbering of the nodes, as usual in the direct trace method, and then this is the active degrees freedom. Well, we can choose active, DSMP or DSMA to solve this problem. Here I choose DSMP or DSMA because it's more straightforward, right, for manual computation. So let's give the numbering like this. This is the red one is the numbering for active only degrees freedom. 1, 2, beginning from the lowest number, 3, 4, and 5, because we restrain this. And then the inactive degrees freedom is 1, 2, 3, inactive or passive. So I use P for passive, right? Inactive, because it's given. And in this case, given as 0, right? So any questions regarding the modeling from this one to this one?
For roller, sir, it's okay to just model one roller because the previous is 3.
No, this is not 3 along all the sides, right?
Oh,
Infinitely many. We just draw 3, but actually not 3. This is just illustration. Okay, so when we talk about finite element, we only define the degrees freedom at the nodes. So it's enough to specify the roller here at the nodes, because in finite element model, we only have displacement at the nodes. Others will follow, okay, from the interpolation.
okay, sir.
Well, as usual, later we want to connect the global numbering system and the local numbering system. Let's say for element number 1, we use the local numbering system like this, okay? The local number 1, 2, 3, okay? So the connection between, or the mapping between the global and local numbering for element number 1 at degrees freedom number 1 is 0, 0 because inactive, right? At node number 2, 1, 2. At node number 3, this one, 3 local, this is because we have 1, 2, 3, right? 3 local, we have 0 and 5. For element number 2, we should define how the orientation of our local numbering first, okay? In this example, I define like this, 1, 2, 3. But should always counterclockwise. Why? Because when I formulated this element, I use counterclockwise convention. If you give local numbering clockwise, it will be in error when you computing the area, negative area rather, okay, because we compute the area using the Jacobian, okay, or using the not Jacobian, the formula that derived from using this convention. So for element number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0 and 5. Is it clear? Now we are going to use the CST in the context of the direct disk method. And we choose, I choose here the DSM A. You may choose also the DSM P if you want. Next step, for element number 1, we should calculate the stiffness matrix. But to calculate the stiffness matrix, we need this data, right? Coordinate. Node 1, 0, 0. Node 2, 400, 0, right? In millimeter. Node 3 is 0, 400. Node 3 local. I mean, this is referred to local numbering, not global numbering, okay? 1, 2, 3. Always local numbering. When we talk about element, we should use local numbering system. So this is the coordinates, and then let's calculate B matrix. Because if we want to calculate the stress matrix, we should first calculate B, right? And we have the formula for B, this one, right? You just plug in these numbers to this. What's the area? 2 times of the area of this triangular element is 400 times 400, okay? That's 2 times area, okay? Just the area of the square. Sorry. Yes, 400 times 400. But y2 minus y3, for example, y2 minus y3 is minus 400. So 400 divided by 400 is just 400. The result is this. The final result is this. You can check by yourself, okay? Any questions up to this point? This is the B matrix for element number 1. And then we should also, whether this is, we should ask whether this problem is a plane stress or plane strain problem. Because the thickness is thin, this is plane stress problem, right? So we choose the elasticity matrix for plane stress problem, this one, the formula. And from the data, it's 200 gigapascal or kilonewton per square millimeter. That's E. Nu is 0.3. This is steel, right? Typical values for steel. And then just plug in. This is 0.7. And then this is the results, okay, in gigapascal. Any questions? This is the elasticity matrix for plane stress problem. So the stiffness matrix for element number 1 is given by this one. B transpose E, B, A, H. Of course, B here is just this one. Okay. Transpose E. E we have calculated this one. And then B, same B as this one, right? The area, 80,000 times the thickness. Just use MATLAB, because if we do it manually, it's long time, right? This is matrix multiplication. It's long time, long computation actually. If we do it manually, at least use Excel, at least. But the most convenient one is use MATLAB. So we can easily calculate it. And the result is given by this one. You see that the stiffness matrix retain the properties of the stiffness matrix. That, for example, the diagonal is positive, right? Diagonal positive, symmetric. What else? How about singularity? Is this singular or not? What do you think? It means the rank of this matrix should be less than 6. The answer is yes, it's singular. The rank of this matrix actually only 3. So the size 6, but the rank is 3. You can check using MATLAB, okay? But why should be 3? Because there is 3 rigid body motion, because the element can move in X direction, Y direction, and can rotate freely. So it contains three rigid body motion. So the rank is only 3. Okay. Well, that's for element number 1. We do the same thing for element number 2. We write the coordinates for element number 2 for beginning from this one, not number 1 local, okay, and then 2 local, and then 3 local. This is the coordinates, and then plug in this data into B expressions, and then give the second. This is not B square, but B for element number 2, okay. So the superscript is not square here. It means the B matrix for element number 2. This is the results. Okay, just plug in this data into the formula, and then the stiffness matrix with the same E. Okay, we have this one. This is the stiffness matrix for element number 2. Well, you see, for element number 2, not only we should compute the stiffness matrix, but we remember that it's subjected to traction force here, surface traction. The tension force is surface traction, okay? So we can apply the previous formula. That's constants, right? For the constants, we just apply this formula, okay? So the thickness is 10. The length of the side 1, 2 for this element, but this is side 1. This is the numbering is given by this one, right? Local numbering 1, 2, 3. So this is the length of this one is L12, which is equal to 400 millimeter. So we can write that. That's we just plug in to this formula. Okay, 400 thickness divided by 2. The Tx is what? The surface traction. But what's given in this formula is the surface traction should be in the force per unit area. Here is given in the unit of force per unit length, you see. Here. So we should divide by the thickness. Okay. So this becomes 0.2, and then we apply to the formula. So when you're applying this formula, be careful. If you already multiplied the x with h, you don't have to write h here. Okay. It means that's 2 is you can use directly but without h. But here I use the original formula. The original formula is in the unit of force per unit length. So this is not length, area. This applied to where? Only because you see that in this case, what is the x in this case? In this problem, only in x direction, right? That's 0.2 and 0 in the unit of kilonewton per square millimeter. So we only have in x direction. Y direction is 0. So this is the equivalent of the force. This is not square for element number 2. For element number 2. This is the application of this formula. Well, you can guess after this, what should we do? After we have stiffness matrix, equivalent of the body force, and then assemble, right? That's the standard direct stress method. Assembling, we have this one in global level. So this is the assembling process. I will not talk in details because I believe you already know how to assemble, right? Because the direct stress method is the lecture material before the mid-semester exam, right? This is from the assembling of the equivalent of the force. Solving this, we obtain this displacement. Okay, now we can compare the results with the exact. Okay, the exact one is before is, for example, we consider the displacement of this point. Okay, 3 and 4. According to the exact solution, that's 0. This is upper right corner here, right? So 0.4 and minus 0.12. That's exact without using finite element. Our finite element result is what? For 3 and 4. Let's take a look. One, two, three. So 3 and 4. 3 and 4. Exact, right? The same as exact. 0.4 and minus 0.12. So even though only using two elements already give the XF for this problem. This is for pure tension problem. In other words, the CST element can reproduce exact solution for pure tension problem. Okay. How about the stress? Well, as usual, to obtain the stress, we move from structural displacement to element displacement using MCOR. Any difficulties up to this point? How to obtain this one? From this one, global to local. Just like in truss, right? Truss structures, the same. There is no difference. So once we can formulate the stiffness equations, the direct stiffness procedure is always the same. That's the beauty of the finite element method. And then from the displacement for each element, this is element 1, element 2, we can calculate the stress, right? The stress is just use the constitutive equations E. This is the strain, right? BD is the strain. And again, whether this is exact or not, according to the exact solution, the stress at every point is constant 0.2, and finite element gives the exact solution, even though only two elements. Well, lastly, how about the spot reactions? The spot reaction we can calculate from this one, balancing force FA, right? This one. And then after this, we can assemble using inactive degrees freedom. This is we define inactive degrees freedom, right? For element number 1. MCOT for inactive degrees freedom is 1, 2, 0, 0, 0, 3, right? From here for element number 1. For element number 2, I think just this one, right? 3, 0. Any questions up to this point? This useful for assembling this one, right? Applied nodal force to obtain the spot reaction. So assembling using MCOT for inactive degrees freedom, we obtain the spot reaction. And the spot reaction is here 400 and here 400. So we can draw like this. Is this in balance with this one? Yes, very clear, right? Because the total force is 2 times 400 is 800. In balance with 800 to the left, 800 to the right. So that's all. The conclusion is the CST element works perfectly for tension problem. Before proceeding to the second problem, pure shear problem, let me show you that actually for plane stress and plane strain problem, I have created a computer program in MATLAB. Okay, the computer program is all in the one folder. The a series of programs. Okay, the folder called program 6 bab 7 bab 7 ya. Okay. So this is taken from my book. Okay. When I wrote the book, I also wrote the program. You may use the computer program given in my book. The input can be in Excel or can be in MATLAB. If you choose Excel, just usual, as usual, can be you may have control worksheet. Okay, to control regarding whether n type is whether plane stress or plane strain, whether you want to display the output and so on. Okay, this is the coordinates, element connectivity, material properties, restraints or boundary conditions. Okay, loadings. The loadings. This can be direct loads, surface traction, body force, even temperature. So it's complete program. And the good news is the program is free for you. Okay, no need to pay, and you can use to solve many problem of plane strain and plane stress. But unfortunately, I don't have time to explain the program in details. You can just read the examples from my book, okay? I just want to explain this one. Any questions from the previous example? Example 1, pure tension problem. Okay, if now let's continue with the second example, the same body but different force. So this is exactly the same, or also different spot conditions. Spot condition is like this, okay? So it's subjected to pure shear, like this. We have shear force here, here, on this side, this one. All 1 kilonewton per millimeter. Can we solve this exactly? Yes, we can. So if we have shear force, the deformation is just like this, right? It will make an angle theta, and the top face will displace D. Well, the shear stress is just the force times the area. The force is 400, because this is 400, this is also 400, this 400, 400 times 1. 1 is the thickness, right? Oh, no. Sorry. 400 times 1. 1 is this one, the force, I mean. And then the thickness is 10, just like before. So the stress or the surface traction, also the stress, shear stress is 0.1 kilonewton per square millimeter. Well, now how to compute the strain? Just use the basic relationship of the shearing strain and shearing stress. That's tau divided by G. What is G? G is shearing modulus. We can calculate using this one. 200 divided by 2 times 1 plus nu. So 76.9 to 3 kilonewton per square millimeter. This is the shearing strain. As expected, always small, because we assume that the shearing strain small, right? When we derive the formulations. If somehow you found that the shearing strain is big enough, let's say up to 0.5, like that, maybe the theory is not applicable. You still can calculate, but maybe the result is not reliable. Okay. How about the displacement? D, just theta, this one, times this one. Because this is actually not theta, this is the kind of tangent, right? Tangent theta. The shearing strain is just like tangent theta. Tangent theta times 400. So this is 0.552, and there is no displacement in vertical direction, only in U directions. Any questions regarding this one? So it's good before performing finite element analysis to know the exact solution. This is because the problem is actually no need finite element actually to calculate the displacement and to describe the deformation and the shearing, the stress inside, the stress distribution. We just want to test whether the CST works perfectly or not for pure shear problem. Okay, now let's use finite element. We can use the same element like before, 2 elements, but the degrees freedom is a little bit different because of the different spot, right? And then you can also write again the M code. And then how about the stiffness matrix? Do we need to calculate again, recalculate? No need, because will be the same as before, because similar structure, right? The same structure, the same mass. Because of the same mass, we don't need to recalculate the stiffness matrix. Will be the same, okay? So don't waste time. Just calculate the equivalent nodal force, because the equivalent nodal force is now different. For example, for element 1, we have 2 side force, 1, 2, and 1, 4, right? actually the local numbering is like this: 1, 2, 3. So we have force here and force here, right? On side 1, 2 and on side 1, 3 or 3, 1. Okay, this one. Okay, we should convert this into equivalent of the force. So this is traction factor. What's the direction? The magnitude is what? 0.1, right? 0.1. The magnitude in x direction minus 0.1. In y? No. Is it clear? The traction alongside 1, 2. This is alongside 1, 2. Is this one. Any question? How about the traction alongside 1, 4? 1, 3 in local. So the surface traction alongside 1, 3 is, can you write? What's the first components?
0.
Yes, no x component, but only y component. Minus, because opposite to the y direction, right? The y direction is positive here. So this is opposite. Well, I think just now, because this is constant force, we can also use the same formula to calculate. For example, this is the surface traction. We have two sides, 1, 2 and 1, 3. We just add them together. So this is the length of 1, 2. This is the length of 3, 1. Of course, in this case, it's the same, 400 and 400. The thickness is the same, 10 and 10. Just the difference is this, right? Minus 0.1 on side 1, 2. So this is this one. Minus 0.1 and 0. Okay. This one and this one, right? This is 0 and 0. And for this side, 0 minus 0.1. So this is 0 minus 0.1. And this one, right? But this is 0. Because this is 1, 2, 3. This is side 3, 1. So side 3, 1, the side 2 is 0 always, okay? It's the same as this. This is side 1, 2. 1, 2 is 3 is 0, okay? Any questions? And then plug in the numbers and then calculate like this. That's the equivalent force for for element number 1. How about for element number 2? On element 2, we have along this side, this is 1, 2, 3, right? Local numbering, always local numbering. This is the force. The T is what? 0, 0.1, okay? On this one, what? 0.1 and 0. So just plug in this into the equivalent force for node number 2. This one, okay? Side 1, 2, and 2, 3, okay? And then plug in the numbers there, and then compute it. And then we obtain the equivalent of the forces, both for element number 1, number 2, already, stiffness matrix already. So we just assemble them to obtain this one, okay? This is the same stiffness matrix as before, as the previous example, but this different. And solving this using MATLAB, for example, or Excel, we can obtain the solution for the displacement. And comparing this with the previous one, the exact solution here, that's exactly the same, right? So this is exact solution, the same as exact solution. How about the stress? Using the same procedure, I didn't write the details here, but the same procedure as the previous one. We also obtain the This is sigma x, sigma y, and tau xy. Exactly 0.1, the shearing stress, right? The same as the force, because this is pure shear problem. Spot reactions, no spot reactions, 0, all 0, it means the structure in self-equilibrium state. It means without spot, already in equilibrium, without spot. Okay, and this is exact, okay, exact, because we know that we see that here we can guess that the spot reaction is 0 because the structure already in self-equilibrium. Actually, this spot just needed for analysis, because without spots, there will be rigid body motion and we cannot perform finite element analysis. Actually, no need spot, actually, in reality, for this structure. Any questions? So whenever you found that there are some external forces, but the external forces is such a way that they are in the condition of self-equilibrium, the spot reaction always 0, okay? So now let's test our finite element. How about the effect of temperature change? For example, the same body, okay, exactly the same, without loads, just temperature change of 5 degrees. Let's say initially 20 degrees to become, after deformation, 25 degrees. So the change is 5 degrees, okay? So this is not absolute temperature, but the temperature change, the delta of the T, okay, temperature change. Can we calculate exactly without finite element? Yes, we know from our previous knowledge that when we have a metal like steel, and then the temperature increase is expand, right? The steel will expand with the formula expansion is given by alpha T, where alpha is the coefficient of thermal expansion times the temperature. That's the strain, right? Actually, the strain of expansion. Because of this strain, we also have displacement, this one, okay? Let's say at the right corner, upper right corner. And because this is freely expand, we can expect that there is no stress. There exists strains, but no stress, because this is free expansion without any restraints. Okay, we can expect 0 stress. Let's use finite element. This is the same as the problem number 1. So I think the stiffness matrix will be the same, just the change is, we should calculate the equivalent nodal body force due to temperature change in this case, okay, this one. B, for element number 1, this one, E alpha T, I think just plug in the data, because this is constants we can take out of integrals. And then the result is this one for element number 1, okay? And then for element number 2, we do the same procedure, and then we got this. So these are the equivalent nodal force for each element 1, element 2, and then we assemble to obtain the equivalent nodal force for the structure. Okay, this one. And then solve the stiffness equations. I didn't write here, but this is the results. You may compare with the exact this one, previous one. Oh, the displacement is 0.0224 at the right corner, right? Right corner is where? Here, 3, 4 degrees, 3 and 4. Is this correct? Is this yes? This 1, 2, 3, 4. Exactly the same. Okay. So again, for uniform distribution of temperature and free expansion for this problem, the CST works perfectly. So we can conclude that CST works perfectly for pure tension, pure shear, temperature change, uniform temperature change. Okay, so this is the results, and zero stress also. Okay, zero stress. We can calculate the stress from here. Any questions so far? And self equilibrium also. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay, now let's test our CST element for pure tension, pure bending problem. Pure bending problem. Let's say we have a beam like this. The length is 200 millimeter. The thickness is 10 millimeter. The height is 40 millimeter. Again, made from steel. Let's say made from steel. Subjected to bending moment like this. 533.33 millimeter kilometer. Why did I choose this number? I chose this number because to make the displacement easy to remember. Because using this number, if we calculate the displacement due to moment, according to the beam theory, it's just 1 millimeter. Actually, I adjust the loadings in such a way that it gives the 1 millimeter deflection according to beam theory. Okay. So for this problem, pure bending problem, we actually don't need finite element as well, right? Because we just can use the beam bending theory. And according to the beam bending theory, the result is 1 millimeter. Excuse me, there is someone. Rumahnya kan sini ya? Iya, masih ini kan pas fotonya rumahnya ya itu iya, itu yang salah itu. Iya, tempat ada apa orangnya pindah. Kenapa? Berusaha singkat ini. Enggak ada, saya tahu enggak ada. Biasanya kita sepintang itu. Oh iya, kan samsat. Iya, samsat. Okay, I written. So before performing finite element analysis, let's calculate using what we know. Just use this formula, right, from beam bending theory, ms square over 2EI, and then we got 1 millimeter. Furthermore, we also can calculate the stress, the maximum stress, absolute value of the maximum of the stress. Okay. Just the bending moment times the maximum coordinate. I mean the farthest position from the neutral axis. This is neutral axis. This is 40, 20, right? 20 divided by the moment of inertia. That's 0.2. Furthermore, we also can calculate the strain energy using the beam theory. This comes from the beam theory. Maybe you ever learned this in the mechanics of material, right? Okay, so the question is how to model this body using CST. Well, here I try to use several elements. First, I divide the, let me use paintbrush. Where is my paintbrush? Here it is. So our problem is we have a beam. Okay. How to use CST? Of course, we should create a mesh of CST. Here I use, for example, 2 by 5. What I mean 2 by 5 is 2 in the vertical direction and 5 in the horizontal direction, like this, okay? 5. Maybe like this. And then the element orientation like this, okay? This is what I mean by 2. 2 is 2 subdivision in the vertical directions. And what I mean with 5 is 5 subdivision of the horizontal direction. The total number of elements, of course, how many? 20, right? 2 times this, so 20 elements with 20 elements. And then the question is, maybe you wonder how to specify the boundary conditions, displacement boundary conditions here, okay? The boundary conditions in the original model is like this, so it's, I think, just easy. Here become hints, here roller. That's the boundary condition for the fix, because fix, it means this cannot rotate, right? This cross section cannot rotate, cannot move freely on the horizontal direction, vertical direction, and cannot rotate. That's fixed, equivalent to the fix in beam. So it's equivalent to this one, cantilever beam. Equivalent to this one, okay? Cantilever beam. This is subjective to bending moment. How to model the bending moment in plane stress problem? In plane stress model, we cannot input the bending moment directly, of course. We should convert into surface traction. How to convert? Use the stress formula, okay? So using this formula, we can convert into surface traction. Like this. This is tension, that's compression, right? Any questions regarding this? How to model this one? This one, okay. Here the illustration for the mesh, the different mesh. So I use different mesh 2 by 5, and then I refine the mesh, just divided the previous mesh for 4 times 10, and then 8 times 20, and then 16 times 40. This is the mesh of 8 times 20. And then this is the traction force, surface traction force. The distribution is linear here, linear here. Any questions? And then, because there are too many elements here, of course, I don't want to calculate using manually. I use program, okay, computer program of my MATLAB, okay, that I wrote by myself. Maybe it's better to demonstrate one pure tension problem, right? Pure tension problem. I think the data contained in here, okay? This is the data, input data, okay? Pending, maybe there. This is the input data, okay, for the pure bending problems in MATLAB, okay? And then I will not talk the details of this, but how to run this program. Use the main program is in GoCST. Okay, GoCST. And then just write the name of the files here. Okay, the name of the files, and then how many elements? Let's begin from the first one, right? The lowest one. This is the lowest element, 5 by 3. 5 by 3. Or 2 by 5, I mean. And then just run this one, GoCST. Let me control the input first. The input will be the output, I mean. Okay, let it be like this. And then run go CST. CST. Go CST. Okay, this is the strain energy. And then writing the output. And then this is the deform shape. Okay, deform and undeform as usual. You can see the results. Okay, this is the undeform, deform after bending. And then stress, how about the stress? Okay, this is the stress. What do you think of these results? Is this good or not? It's not good. Why? Because the stress jumps. Here is tension, but jump suddenly. This is quite high, around 0.08 maybe, and then jump to very low, 0.02. So in general, if you see the result like this, it's not so good because there is rough jump between elements. The stress jumps from high to low values, okay, as you can see from the color. So it indicates that the finite element cannot predict well the deformation of this beam, okay. Actually, I left the detail because don't have time. This is the result of the running the program. When I use the mesh of 2 by 5, okay, the deflection is 0.376, the deflection of this point. According to the exact, it should be what? 1, right? So it's too low, right? Too low, far away from 1. It means what? The CST element cannot predict the bending, pure bending condition. Unlike pure tension, pure shear, the CST element performs quite poor in pure bending problem. This is the error in this deflection, okay? 62% when we use this mesh. The error in the strain energy also around the same because we just calculated the exact strain energy, 2.67, but the given strain energy is too low, okay? The error is about the same. Okay, what should we do if we want to have a better results? We should use better finer mesh, okay? I just divide again for its divide by 2 for each side. This is become 4, this is by 10, become 10, and then the result is better, close to 1, closer to 1, right? The error is reduced, also the error in strain energy. I want a better result because this is 0.7 is still far away from 1. How about if we use 8 by 20, right? Like this mesh, okay? This is 8 by 20. We obtain the result is this one, 90%, okay? So the error is just almost 10%, also in strain energy. So I divide it again into 2, and then this is very fine mesh actually. Now the error is below 5%, okay? Both in terms of the displacement and strain energy. So you see, the performance of the CST is quite poor. Why? In this bending problem, because we need very fine mesh to obtain the deflection, unlike in pure bending or pure shear and pure tension. Any questions? This is, we see the displacement error and the strain energy error.
Sir,
Yes.
for if we want to calculate manually
Yes.
by CT CST method, the bending problem, is the element can be typically calculated, or it's different each element? Because the
I'm sorry,
element,
I don't get what your point.
uh,
What do you mean by calculate its element?
I mean, if the previous problem, we can typically calculate like one.
One and two elements only.
Yes, yes.
Yes, if you use one and two element, that's the result will be worse.
Mm,
Too bad. I mean, very low, much lower than this one. Because why? Because this is pure bending problem. Pure bending problem, the CST doesn't perform well. Just doesn't perform well if used to few elements. So we should use very fine mesh. So if we should use many elements, of course we cannot perform manual calculation. I mean, we should use program, right? Because program is a kind of automatic calculation. Actually, what I wrote in MATLAB program just like manual calculation like that, but make it automatic. Okay. Otherwise, we don't have time to write to calculate such a number. So that's why finite element is effectively is a computer-based method, not manual-based method. Okay. It's contained in commercial software such as SAP 2000, ETABS, and many other programs.
okay, sir.
Okay, so for this problem, I think if you do manual calculation, it's not not a good idea. Well, how about the stress? For example, if we take a look at mesh 8x20, which we know already the displacement still have error about 10%, and also the strain energy. How about the stress? How to know the stress? For example, here we cut here. Okay, this is the element, and then this is the by the way, the color distribution now is quite smooth, right? Unlike before when we see for this one is sudden change, but now it's better, much better than before. uh Cut here, and then we see that there are 8 elements in the vertical directions, and we just how to interpret the stress, because for each element we have stress, right? There are two ways. First one is just look at the centroid of the element. Okay, so this is the exact stress. This is the stress at the centroid of the element. So we can interpret the stress for its element gives the stress at the centroid like this. So it's quite close here to the exact, but this is quite far, right? A little bit far. Another way is just take it at the nodes and then average. So we take the results for each element at the nodes and then take the average. This is the average stress at the nodes. Okay, it's a little bit inaccurate here, but in the middle is quite accurate, right? The stress, but inaccurate outside. Any questions? This is sigma x only. We don't have sigma y, tau xy, because this is actually theoretically we don't have sigma y and tau xy. Should be 0, but in finite element there is error. So there is sigma x, sigma y, and the sigma y and tau xy is not 0 because of the error. Okay. So doesn't give exact solution for this problem. Okay, you can also do the test for this problem. That's called Coach-Memban problem. I will not discuss, but similar to previous tests, and then you will get these results. The finer the mesh, or the more element you use, the better the results. Okay. This is just to test which one is better, this orientation or this orientation, because the mesh, for the mesh, we can use this one or this one, okay? And the mesh type A, the first one is better because with the same number of element sides, this is 16, it means 16 in this side and this side, and we get the closer result than this one. This is another problem called infinite plate with a hole. For this problem, it's also self-equilibrium because we have a very large plate subjected to tension, and then there is a hole. But this is the size is infinite. How to model this problem? If this is infinite, of course, in our model, we cannot use infinite area, right? So we should limit it ourselves to some values. Let's say take 5 times the radius. This is radius 1, the cost. This is I. Take 5 times the radius. I think that's enough. And then just apply the force here, okay? Here, and then we can see the result using this mesh, for example. And then this the results, okay? The deformation, the stress. You see that according to the theory, if you learn the theory of this one, whenever there is a hole, for example, for the steel structure we use for bolts, okay, there is a stress concentration. If this is 100, according to the theory, it will be 3 times here, the stress. There is stress concentration, okay, 3 becomes 300. You see the finite element results, is this 300? Not yet, right? But close here. This is the area where we have high stress around the hole. This should be 0, right? But this is almost 300, but not yet. Maybe we should use finer mesh here to achieve 300. Okay, and this is the stress distribution near the hole. I mean here. This is close to 100 because following the stress here, but here become high stress, okay? High stress region. Okay, this is the CST element results using reading from the centroid and using the average. Okay, so this along this region is very good, right? Very good prediction, but near the holes, it's not so good because it's 300 actually the highest stress, but here predicted is just 225. In other words, we should in the vicinity or near the holes, we should use very fine mesh to predict the actual stress. Okay, so not very accurate to predict the maximum stress. This is a problem of high stress gradient because you see initially it's just flat, and here the stress suddenly becomes very fast, increasing very fast from 100 to 300, increasing very fast for near the holes. So near the holes, actually we should use finer mesh. We should divide more using more mesh. Here we don't need to refine mesh, but here yes, we need to use more mesh here. Okay. Well, the question, last examples. Is it possible to model the wide flange beam using CST, using plane stress? The answer is yes, possible. How to model the flange? Just use different thickness because the thickness of the web is just the web thickness. For example, for this wide flange 450 by 150, it means 150, 150. This is the web, right? 6.5. The thickness of the flange 9. Well, this is the thickness of the flange. The thickness of the web. For the flange, we use 150, the thickness of the model. So we can use the final model like this. Okay, for the web and the flange. For the flange, we use the thickness of this model 150. That for this one, web is just 6.5. So it's a kind of sudden jump of the thickness to model the wide flange beam. Okay, whether the results is quite accurate? Yes. For I use very fine mesh. You see, this the mesh, and then the bending moment. As usual, we can use this formula for bending moment. This is the moment of inertia of the beam. Okay, moment of inertia, and then this is the deflection according to beam theory. Stress, strain energy, we can calculate using the same formula as before. This is the mesh, and this is the result, the stress in sigma x direction. Okay, sigma x. And then this is the comparison. According to finite element, this is the result. Exactly. The difference is very little, right? How about the stress? Also, there is not much different. Strain energy, also there is not much different. In other words, both the exact solution from beam theory and from finite elements very close each other. Okay, for this problem. The problem is, how about castellated beam? You know castellated beam? Like this. For castellated beam, there is no exact solution. Actually, there is no exact solution for calculating the deflection, stress. This is, I think, finite element will be better than exact solution because there is no exact solution. What we can do is just to predict, right? This is not exact because for this problem, the moment of inertia of this beam is not constant, it's varied. So this is the minimum and maximum moment of inertia. How to calculate the deflection? Can we use this formula? Actually, we cannot. But just a prediction. Let's say how about if we use average? It means just this divided by 2, and then we get these results. Okay. The stress also we cannot use this formula actually, but if we use, this is the results. Okay. Let's compare. This is the mesh that I use to model the castellated beam. Okay. And then this is the deflection due to bending moment. And then this is all use my program, right? For free. So you can do the same using MATLAB codes, my MATLAB codes. I use MATLAB codes. This is the results, stress. This is the comparison. This is finite element results. I think it's more accurate because this is not exact now. Just a kind of equivalent beam method. Actually, there is no exact solution for this problem. But the result for the deflection is still close. But the problem is the maximum stress. According to finite element is 100, but according to beam theory is just 71. It's a big difference, right? Why? Because I think finite element can capture the stress concentration here. When there is an angle, there is stress concentration. The beam theory cannot capture the stress concentration around this one, on the sharp angles like this, on the angles like this. Okay, I think finite element is perform better for this problem, castellated beam. So we can conclude that CST elements have defects in the bending problem, right? And I will not discuss this. Another defect is in the plane strain problem. If you have material with Poisson ratio close to 0.5, also for this problem, this element is not good. It will lock, right? Too stiff. You will have too stiff solutions. So, okay, that's all for the CST element.